Blastoise was my starter Pokemon the first time I played Fire Red, and he's got a lot of good qualities besides that. Giant water cannons, Michelin Man arms, and peak physique. What else could you ask for? Today, let's do my starter proud by building him out of LEGO. Thanks to Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform, for sponsoring today's video. As we start out on our journey, it's only right that we leave a trail of KO'd enemies behind. These eyes have a cool coppery color, which is a good approximation for Blastoise's brown eyes, but they need some more of that characteristic Gen 1 anger. These blue claws can provide just that. Let's use a plate to connect those two parts together, and then swing his brow into place. Up next, we can complete his angry eye with a lower lid. I've built up the other eye, so we can connect them together using this funky right angle bar part. Let's first add some hollow studs, and then connect the eyes. At this rate, Blastoise will be ready to face off against the Elite Four in no time at all. But first, let's use these slopes to give him some ears. To connect them, I'll use this bracket and lock it in place with an inverted slope. Let's go ahead and mirror that over to the other side. Looking good. Afterwards, we should build up his nose. We can do that using some rounded plates. The holes in this plate will make for great nostrils. For the bridge of his nose, we can borrow this old school castle minifigure's cape. With the nose constructed, now we can figure out a way to attach this together. Let's use a bracket, some clips, and then a T-bar. Into that, we can add a rounded plate, and then almost off screen, we can connect things together. Let's give ourselves some connection point options by adding in a snot brick. I think we're really starting to get somewhere. Now we can start in on building Blastoise's cheeks, using a hinge plate with a bunch of curved slopes. I'll add in a small ball joint so that we're able to position this in just the right spot, which should be somewhere just about here, if we're able to build up enough structure so that it can connect in. Let's start working on that. We can attach that and lock it in place with this bar. Let's continue designing the back of his head so we have a spot for the cheek to connect in. We can use a mix of socket plates and normal plates before capping it off with some slopes. With this funky assembly, we can both round out his head and connect in the cheeks. Those pair of ball and sockets will allow us to position this in just the right spot. For some Blastoise teeth, let's steal these hands from Harley Quinn. Let's add them to his upper jaw. Next, we can turn our attention to the lower jaw. Let's start that off with this shoulder armor, which I'll add some dark tan rounded plates to. Then, a bar and this rod end will give us a connection point. A pair of boat studs will round out the face, but we're gonna need to build up a tongue and some teeth. These Princess Peach cat ears just so happen to have the perfect tongue shape for Blastoise. And for his teeth, I think these cow horns might just do the trick. I'll use a slightly illegal technique to connect them in as flat a way as possible. That assembly sits in place nicely. To actually attach it in, I'll use a rounded jumper and this rod. That wraps up our lower jaw, and I'll add it into our water starter's head. Now that we have that in place, the top of his head is looking pretty empty by comparison. Let's fill it in with a number of slopes. The back of his head I'll construct around this vehicle mudguard. Let's add in a clip joint to attach it. We still need a neck connection, so I'll use this Titan socket. Then we can swing the mudguard into place. With his head done, we should really build up his iconic blasters so he can learn Hydro Cannon. Let's start them with this wheel part. To form the barrel, let's add a half pin, a hollow stud, and a rod. Then, I'll use this part, which is actually a recolored trunk segment from a palm tree. That'll fit perfectly into this other old wheel to round out the cannon. Now, we might as well also build up that shell section that houses the cannons. With some internal structure in place, we can use this wheel well in reddish brown. Then, this wedge slope can attach in. I'll continue that shaping with a pair of smaller slopes. And on the underside, we can add some 1x1 bricks. This newer snot brick can also snap in here. It'll allow for some slopes to finish off the sides. And just like that, we have a Blastoise cannon. Now it turns out, I could only find one of the main wheel parts I used here. So on the other cannon, I'm using a similar wheel, which will actually give us an opportunity to add in a water energy attack. That's looking pretty sweet, but even sweeter are Blastoise's shapely Michelin Man arms. There seems to be a wheel theme here. I think these Mario Kart wheels are the perfect thing for his arms, especially if we connect 3 together. I'm able to pick up cool new parts like these, thanks to the support of my patrons and channel members. Like longtime supporter Shade, if you'd like to support me and my builds, that's the best way to do it. To show my thanks, I'll be making a parts list for this build available to all patrons and channel members. For some weird reason, the holes in this wheel are slightly larger than a normal bar. Luckily for us, the other side offers salvation, as we can just jam the spikes in between the spokes of the wheel, and they seem to stay in place pretty well. Let's go ahead and add 2 more fingies. Let's use a frictionless half pin to color match here, and then we can stop it from freely spinning by adding this hollow stud. His hand can now connect into the rest of the arm. That'll finish things off here, and I think it's time for us to build up Blastoise's dad bod of a turtle shell. These 3x2 slopes are going to be our best friends while building up Blastoise's belly. To the backside, I'll add in a clip. With that and a rod, we can attach in a mirrored version. Next, let's fill in the top of his shell a little more. With this section of the shell, I'm wanting to make it a little bit V-shaped so that we have an opening for his neck. We can then mirror that over to the other side. Let's build up some internal structure so that we have a shoulder joint for his arms. I've added in some sockets, and we can connect everything together with 3 clips and a rod. Around Blastoise's shoulder, there's some white shell detailing. We can recreate that here with some macaronis. Then, we can add some robot hands to this socket so that our macaroni can clip in. Using parts like these ball joints is kind of a cheat code that makes the whole process of building easier. Just like Squarespace, who's sponsoring this video, makes building your website simple. I've been sitting on the mitchbuilds.com domain ever since I started my channel, but I never actually built the site. It just seemed too difficult. But with Squarespace and their collection of cutting-edge design tools, making my website a reality was easy. They have a full suite of award-winning templates you can choose from. From there, you can fully customize things to be just how you want. Say I want a new section here. Easy. I can just add one in. Then I can resize elements with their drag and drop editing, which makes for a very intuitive experience, even if you've never made a website before. Beyond all that, Squarespace comes packed with amazing tools to help you get your business off the ground. There's everything you need to offer services and get paid, all in one place. Kickstarting your business or side hustle. Use my link, squarespace.com/mitchbuilds, to save 10% off of your first purchase of a website or domain. Or head over to Squarespace now for a free trial. To support Blastoise and make sure that he's nice and sturdy, we're going to build up a Technic skeleton to go inside. This double flip-flop beam is going to make for a great jumping off point for the rest of this build, starting by building up a hip connection point. And while we're at it, let's add another connection point to later connect Blastoise's often forgotten tail. With the major structure now figured out, we can continue to build up Blastoise's belly. Let's do that with a bunch more curved slopes and some plates. Let's continue things by adding some hinge plates, which we can use to attach in a mirrored assembly. This rod end will then give us a centered connection point for this segment of Blastoise's belly. To attach that in, we're going to need to add in a centered connection point. Let's let gravity do the work here, so this shell segment hangs down and gives Blastoise his rounded belly. This is a little bit too far for my liking though, so we should add in a stopper. With that installed, I think we have the appropriate level of belly droop. I'll start the next segment with the same core that we previously used. This time, we'll make things slightly smaller by using some different slopes. We're going to want to add that in here with similar techniques to the ones we used on his middle segment. Something nice about making such a big build is that you have tons of room on the interior to connect things however you want to. In this case, I think these 2 little sub-assemblies should do the trick. As long as I don't try and pose him upside down, I think this looks pretty good. Let's continue his belly even further by making a few more shell segments. For an attachment point here, I'm going to use some Technic in the form of this modified brick. Then for the very last segment, I'll again use some more of these curved slopes. And we can attach it with a small ball joint. Up next, Blastoise is going to need some hip surgery if we want to connect this in. Let's add some spacers so that the segment is positioned in the right spot. Then we can rebuild his hip. This next idea is probably overkill, but I think this zipline could add some nice definition between the shell segments and fill in those gaps. First, let's build a little assembly to hold the zipline's ends. With both of those connected, we can then add some structure to the back of Blastoise. Now, let's attach in our zipline holders. And while we're at it, we might as well add a second zipline. It's a little change, but I actually think it adds a lot. We might as well continue by adding one more zipline. Let's employ the same connection method that we used on that first zipline. With those now installed, I think his belly's finished, and we can move on to building up the rest of his shell. I'll start with that white detailing that goes around the outside. These larger white macaronis are going to be perfect for this. To extend them in some places, I'll use a rounded brick, which we can tile off. Let's connect them together with some rods, so that we get the right shape for Blastoise's shell. Next, I'll add in some ball joints so we can connect this at whatever weird angle we need. I think this should do the trick. I've gone ahead and built up the bottom of the shell, using similar techniques. To connect both halves in, we're going to need a pair of sockets, which I'll connect together in this little Technic assembly. Let's add a pair of those in, and then connect the outside of our shell. I honestly can't stress enough how fun this build is to hold. It really feels like you're holding a little turtle. The next logical step from here is to add in those all-important cannons we built up earlier. This little structure will allow us to do just that. These cannons are definitely looking the part. Before we move on to building up the rest of his shell, let's add in a spot for his head to connect. Some Technic panels will be a good starting point, and then we can add in a couple connectors and a ball joint. For a little extra neck mobility, I'll add in a Hero Factory bone. Let's temporarily remove these parts of his shell so that we can attach in his neck. Now that that's in place, we can move on to building up the rest of the shell. For each surface, I'm going to build up its own assembly. We can attach them with small ball joints so that we can position things in just the right spot. To connect the socket, let's use this jumper, and then add in some Technic half pins. Our shell can snap into that, and we can position it into place. I think that's pretty successful, so let's move on to building up the sides of his shell. That leaves us with a nice smooth shell segment, although it looks like Brittle Brown struck again here. In any case, if we want to attach these in, we're going to have to add in a few more sockets. With those in place, we can install our shell sides. Looks like I haven't done a good job of securing this, so let's build a little Technic assembly to lock it into place. If we do some minor surgery to add in a pair of lift arms, things should be held in pretty securely. There's just 2 more shell panels to go. Let's build the bottom one first. To get a centered connection point, I'll use a rounded plate and a round jumper tile. A ball joint can connect into that. To position it in the right spot, I'll build up a little arm with some more mixel joints. That'll allow us to connect this in and position it in the right spot. This brown windshield is the perfect thing for the last part of Blastoise's shell. I'll add a round plate and a jumper, and we can connect the final shell part to finish off Blastoise's body. We left that spot for Blastoise's tail, but we haven't built it yet. To do that, I think these 2 invasion from below spikes are the perfect thing. Let's add them into a socket. And then to fill in this gap, I think this slope should do the trick. I was going to attach it in, but it's actually already in there pretty securely. Now that we have that, the final thing we need is some legs for Blastoise. These white bullrock eyes should work nicely for his claws. I'll add 3 of them to this wheel. We can then build a custom assembly to fill out the bottom of his foot, and add in another claw. I've built things around this Technic brick, so that using a pin axle, we can easily attach it into the wheel. For his kneecaps, I'm going to use this shoulder armor from a Wolverine set. After adding in some clips, we can attach this socket. We can continue the leg shaping with this slope, and swing his kneecap into place. Now let's start to fill in the back of his leg, with a couple plates, and then a Technic brick. In order to get some connection points on the side, we can use some brackets. After that, I'll add in this step plate, which should do a good job of strengthening the leg. Then we can finish off the back of his leg with a few more parts. On the sides, let's use some tiles and a couple slopes. Finally, we can connect in his foot, and it's time for the final assembly. Let's connect in his head. Then we can attach his legs. Afterwards, let's snap in those arms and connect his tail. And with all that done, it's time for the beauty shots.
I wanna be the very best. No one ever
Thanks again to all my amazing patrons and channel members. And special shout out to my newest supporters: Andre Scambati Gomez, Sham, Shurya Devetti, Gurgly Nagy, Eric Bredner, Mike, and the girl next door. You are the building blocks to make this channel possible. If you like this video, YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this one too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. But until then, happy building.
Come with me, the time is right.